Yeah, so it's just an interesting karma, I guess. It's just a really interesting story. Here, putting my mum's ashes into the Jamuna. She's a very special person in my life, and I've been with her practically since I was born. It's really beautiful because she loved me and cared for me, and it was my mum who actually, she taught me how to love. The interesting thing of my story is that I was born in the 1970s, period that Aboriginal children were taken from their parents and their mothers. You know, historically it's called the stolen generation, but I was actually given. You know, when I was 6 weeks old, I was given to Colleen, my mum who I grew up with. And I just loved her so much and was cared for her, cared by her. And then when I was 21, I got a certificate. It was actually the date that when my brother had his Holy Communion, and it was the same day as my birthday, so the day that I was born. So I asked Mum, did you go to Martin's Holy Communion? She said, yes, of course. I went there, and I thought, okay, in my head I'm thinking, okay, how is she going to be at the Holy Communion when she's supposed to be having me in hospital? So I went to the birth registry and I got my birth certificate, and I looked at the bottom of the paper. It said, name has been furnished to Sternbeck, which I grew up with. So then I was like just overwhelmed, and I went down. I went back home to Mum and I gave it to her, and she just cried and cried. Actually, after that, our relationship was even stronger, you know, because I knew the truth then, and still love prevailed, you know, between us. So even one time, my Indigenous auntie, she had come to visit. I didn't know who she was, but the funny thing, she came to visit, and I was like, oh, there's someone here, lady come in, she's the same colour as me. And I remember just thinking that was just really special, and I even remember calling her. I remember we were dropping her at the train station, and I was like, can I call you auntie? She's like, yes, you can call me auntie. But lo and behold, she was my auntie. I just love the temple, and so I joined the temple when I was 14. Just having this rich cultural experience in devotional life, living in the ashram, worshipping the deities every day. I was really peaceful and I was really happy there. Learning about the sacredness of the land, and particularly Vrindavan, by coming here as a holy place and going on pilgrimage. Sacredness of the site is that Krishna performed his pastimes there. Some activity occurred there. That's the speciality of the place. It was really interesting when I started to inquire more about my Indigenous heritage, Aboriginal culture. As a devotee, you learn about Mother Earth being Bhumi, actually being a personality. And also with the Aboriginal culture, there's also that understanding of the land, you know, is a personality. And there were so many parallels between Vedic culture and Indigenous culture, particularly with spirituality. Auntie Pauline Gordon, so she was from the Bundjalung tribe, and she was sitting and she was teaching us this, in seeing everyone as a spirit being who is temporarily in a physical form. To me, there's like a sacred truth. And I think it's particularly of all different Indigenous cultures, there's this sacred truth of the spirit, that we are a spirit being in essence, but temporarily we have these physical forms that we enter into, and then we leave. At a kind of lower level of consciousness, you'll see, okay, here is a man, here is a woman, here is a cow, here is a bird, there is a tree. But as you develop a higher level of awareness, you start to understand that beyond that form, there's a spirit. So you're not necessarily the tree, the bird, the human. You're saying, oh, here is a spirit being. And when you can look at that level of that higher awareness of spirit, it's at that level where you can actually see everyone equally. The fact is, the Supreme Lord is with all the living entities at all times. So therefore, wouldn't we have respect for all living entities always? You know, he's all knowledgeable, he's really clever. He knows what he was doing. So he's made everything perfect. Everything is perfectly made, so we can exist here. You look at Indigenous communities also, everything was always provided for. The people knew how to find water in the desert. You know, in certain places when the wattle flower blossomed, that was an indicator that there would be a food source in the rivers at that time. So just looking at the indications of nature. But who gave that system? The Supreme Lord. You know, God has made that system. So it's such a complete and perfect system. So I just feel so much that Indigenous people walked with that understanding that it's a perfect creation. It's about relationships. Are we seeing them in relation to the creation of the Supreme Lord, something that is perfect and something that has a use? Or are we just seeing something in relation to myself only and whether it's useful or not to me? You know, there's this word that was used called dream time. This is how this particular mountain was formed, or how a particular river was created, or a particular animal. But really the dreaming is something that's going on now. It's just that we're not tuned into it. Like there's all different frequencies for different radio stations. And usually when you're into one frequency or one particular radio station, you can't hear what's on the other radio stations. So the dreaming kind of is there in a different frequency. And you need to tune out of where you are and tune into another one. And the creation's always happening. There's always something going on. It's like it's alive, it's dynamic. It doesn't stop, you know, it's not like the Lord created something and then he stopped. You know, it's a constant process. It's ever evolving, ever changing. I feel that the facility has been created by God to give facility for some experience.